So before we were interrupted, let's just pick right back up.
Okay. So yeah, it was really difficult for me, especially hitting prison. We've just, I expected us to be figuring out life together and really working hard on that. And yeah, now that's not there anymore. We talk sometimes on the phone, not very often, maybe once a week, and then it kind of spaced out. And then, so at some point, she had a public defender for her case, and the district attorney offered her a plea for obstruction of justice, which is still like a Class H felony. But she wasn't going to have to serve any time, and it was going to be 1.5 years of probation. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think that's still horrible. Like I said, we had evidence that she didn't do anything with my phone, but, she was scared, and after seeing how things went with me, she didn't trust the process and took the plea. So when she was in the hearing for signing her plea and stuff, the judge actually spoke up and said that part of her conditions for the plea would be to have no contact with Michael Russ. And I thought that was really low. We loved each other. We're raising kids together. We really were happy, and I don't know. I felt like that was a real shot, and then so I waited definitely. 1.5 years, and yeah.
How did you find that out? Did she tell you that, or how did you know that?
Her mom, she let me know, and she's just like, I don't understand that, and I was like, yeah, I don't either. That seems really almost vindictive. Yeah. But I think the day she came off probation, I was counting the days, and called her, and it's I think she just needed some space and time just to be done with all of it. So we haven't talked in quite a while, and that's okay. And, it's where life is, and I'm just trying to keep in contact with my kids and my family and friends. Okay. So the next thing to come along was a Rule 24 hearing. So I had been sitting in the jail. This is, a couple weeks into January, they announced it. I had these lawyers from Randolph County that I'd been talking to, that Dad had paid money to, and, I've been sitting in the hole this whole time. I'm expecting to finally get a bond and be able to go back to the house. So we go into the Rule 24 hearing, and one of the first things that the DA brings up to the judge was that he thought that I shot Larry Campbell 9 times. And I'd already seen some of the discovery evidence, and I knew that the discovery packet said he'd been shot 3 times. So I was already wow, what? And then he also told the district attorney that his description of me was that I was shooting a man that I thought was unarmed. And I'm immediately wanting to get up and say something. The lawyers are just just let him talk. But I've always maintained this, my record of events or whatever since the start. This man always had a gun out. He pointed a gun at me. It was the main thing I invented, but this was stuff that they were already trying to explain away like it didn't happen. So, yeah, let's see. He said that being in the motorcycle club made me a flight risk. I was just in disbelief. And then he said that he had fully intended to prove aggravating factors, and that he was declaring that he was pursuing the death penalty. And it's just
the death penalty?
I couldn't believe it. Let's say the death penalty. And I just was in disbelief. And the 2 lawyers that I had from Randolph County were just kind of didn't seem like it was a surprise to them. They were just kind of ho-hum. So he said that my course of conduct and the causing great risk to other people were aggravating. And I think this was just a tactic, and I've seen it in Randolph County a few times with this district attorney, that the state gives the district attorney this power that if he wants to pursue the death penalty, he just has to call the hearing and basically declare it. Now, when it comes to trial, he would have to prove it. But what happens if you're capitally charged? There's no chance of a bond. You're not getting out. There's no option for it. So you're stuck. You're definitely going to be stuck in the jail. And that's I don't understand. Bail is constitutionally guaranteed. It confuses me. I'm not a lawyer, but I've read a whole lot of stuff, and I don't see where any of the state stuff overrides the Constitution, but they seem to do it.
Yeah.
So, they didn't really argue about it. I think the lawyer brought up one point that he was considering what's some kind of a hearing called a Smith-Watson hearing to basically force the DA to bring out the aggravating factors to drop the death penalty, but he never did that. Just something really felt wrong about these guys, these lawyers. I told them I didn't think we could put money together to privately retain anybody. It's like $200,000 to privately retain somebody for a death penalty case. And I think they were kind of hitting around, well, we should be able to work with the public defender's office and capital defender's office to get your case. And at first I was like, okay, that'll be good because you guys are supposed to be good and whatever. It kind of felt like that's where they were pushing the case that way or allowing it to go that way. They get twice as much money for a death penalty case as they do a regular murder case. I don't know if that's their intent. It's just how it felt. Go back to the jail. I did not get a bond. I was definitely in shock, and my family decided to step in. Not just my dad, who's been awesome, but my aunt and uncle in Vermont that I basically grown up around. My cousins, she's awesome. They're just awesome people. I have a great family. So lucky. My cousins did study at Harvard Law, not for criminal law, but she came out and said, no, Mike needs a privately retained attorney. We need to figure something out.
Right.
And because she understands the process. So, we are definitely not a rich family. And I kept telling him I thought things would be okay. And my cousin's like, no, you don't understand. You just need to listen and let us do this for you. So people went into 401ks. They went into retirement funds. They fundraised, asked friends that had lots of money, hey, we need some money. They did a lot of things that I would never have expected or asked. And like I said, I had thought everything was going to be fine. So they just were like, no, we're not doing this. So those original attorneys brought a contract that was just silly. It was just ridiculous. It basically said, don't call us, pay half of the money up front, and the rest when the trial starts. And if we don't want to do any more, we're keeping your money. More than that, but it really was about a page and a half. The place that my girlfriend went to work, manager there had a really good friend who was a lawyer, was looking at the case, was really interested in it, and he started working with, that man's name's Alex. He's awesome, really been a friend through this thing. He was talking with a man named Tommy, who has done tons and tons of murder cases in North Carolina. He's got movies after his case and all kinds of stuff. So they just happened to be talking, and Tommy heard about the case, and they both said, man, we'd really like to try this. So we met and talked. I really liked him, and they brought a contract that made sense. They filled out their own expectations, that things that they would achieve throughout the process or try to achieve. That's who we decided to go with, and they were from Durham. They weren't from Randolph County. But one common theme with all these lawyers that I kept running into was when I first laid everything out for them, hey, this is what happened, et cetera, they were assuring me that, yes, this was self-defense. So, that's the way we decided to go. With a couple of attorneys from Durham, and everybody really buckled down and made it happen for me. And I really appreciate it because I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't. So a few months later, Tommy announced a hearing in Randolph County that announced to be my privately retained attorneys. Tommy announces that we'll be declaring an affirmative defense of self-defense. And the DA kind of reacted kind of wild, saying that he was unaware of anything like this, never heard of anything about self-defense, and he's been listening to all my phone calls, like literally every phone call at the jail they're listening to, because if I said anything that could even be misconstrued, I'm hearing about it every time we go to court. So like I said, I've told my lawyers, I've told my family, my friends, the people in the jail, which sometimes isn't the smartest thing to do, but like I said, I've been honest from the start. I'm not changing my story for anybody because I'm telling the truth.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
So, did they take any of your conversations that you had during that time at the jail? Did they take any of your conversations and use those in court against you?
Yes. They only used a couple of them in the trial. against me. One of them was, of course, Jonathan and my phone call. It was regarding your phone bill's due. I can shut the phone off, or I can back it up. It can be shut off, like locked. It can be wiped. What do you want to do with me? I was like, well, yeah, just take care of it. Like, this is word for word, pretty much the sentence. I just take care of it. That's what needs to happen. They used the one call between my girlfriend and I, and that was kind of the basis that my phone did get wiped. We had an email showing that, all this conversation is way after that thing ever got wiped. We know what happened to it, and it wasn't.
Oh, okay. So the phone all that happened with the phone long prior to this conversation that you had on the jail on the jail call.
Yes.
Okay.
So it really didn't do what they wanted to, I don't think. And then just one other call, they made a really big deal of, I was describing a conversation with one of the jail maintenance guys, who was great to me. He's a really, really good guy. He let me help him out once in a while. But he's like, well, why are these guys riding around your territory and stuff? And I was like, hold on a second. I said, this has nothing to do with territory. We don't claim territory, motorcycle clubs. It's just like the I don't know, the kind of the law enforcement and people who don't know us way to define like where we're from or whatever. But I told the guy,
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
I'm explaining the conversation to someone else, and I'm telling them, I just told the guy, hey, man, that's my home. It's about my home. It's not about any kind of territory or anything like that. So I'm trying to downplay what he's trying to talk about, and then the district attorney takes and runs with it. So you were mad these guys will buy your home? I didn't say anything like that. So
okay, so they were taking it out of context.
Yes, another example. There's a couple of things that happened like this. The day the prosecution rested, they released everybody from their subpoenas. Well, there were two of my friends that were released from their subpoenas, so now they could come to court and support me on my side of the courtroom. Well, I talked to somebody that night on the jail phone and said, hey, tell this person and this person they can come now. They don't have any subpoenas. There's no testifying. They're allowed to come. They want to come to support me. Now's the time because there's not much trial left. Well, the next morning I get to the jail, and my lawyer's like, what did you say on the phone? And I'm like, what do you mean? Did you tell a bunch of people to come down here and do something crazy? I'm like, what? What are you talking about? So I explained to him what was said. And then we're in court, and the DA's like, yeah, he's telling all his brothers to get down here and to do something. Nothing like that was ever said. I just told him, he just kept trying to grab anything and blow it into some crazy stuff.
Were those recordings played so people could actually hear what was said?
Yes, there were. They had a DVD. They gave my lawyers like 1,800 phone calls. And then any one new one that popped up, and he tried that stuff. My lawyers would get it right away, and they play it. And the judge is like, "Come on, what are you doing here?" It was really over the top sometimes. So all right. So now my lawyers have announced that they're my lawyers. Kind of threw some things around about the self-defense, things like that. We were asking for copies of surveillance videos from the restaurant and some other things. We only have the one copy, and any other helpful evidence. And the district attorney, the district attorney's seen all these things. Another reason I just couldn't believe he was coming after me the way he was. So they put those motions in. And now we're in August. This was April when they came on. So now we fast forward a hearing in August. The main thing was to request bond. They cleared up some little motions and stuff. We proposed a $300,000 bond with a GPS ankle monitor. My lawyer explained that I had good standing in the community, did service work on machines and faxing lines for many customers. I had a home in the county that I would be at, and I was not a flight risk. And as soon as we did that, the judge was considering, he said, this is reasonable. The district attorney has like a bit of a hissy fit, and he says, Your Honor, he's backed by the help. He can probably make $1 million bond. I mean, I don't know. I just kind of rolled my eyes because this stuff didn't stop. In my mind, I'm just kind of like, so you think I can afford this? One, that's not true. The two, that's not how bond is done. Let's give you a bond that you can't afford. That's not what's supposed to to be, but the judge is kind of agreeing with us. So the DA holds up this pack of papers like an inch thick almost. I mean, it's like a small phone book. And he starts waving it at the judge. And I was like, what is that? Then the judge is like, all right, fine, let me see the arrest. So the judge starts to read off different charges. He says assault, Columbus County, assault, Robeson County, assault on a government official, assault on a school official, assault. And he just goes on and on and on. And I'm like, whoa, that's not me. I don't know where Columbus County is. I know where Robeson County is. I've never been to Robeson County, and I've never been charged with anything like this.
And these are all assaults that he's mentioning?
Assaults, there's some other...
Like somebody's criminal background.
Yes, and it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot.
Under your name or what?
I know, well, it wasn't me at all, but the one page of my arrest stuff was in the discovery packet. That was on top of this packet. So, I'm freaking out. My family's back there freaking out. My girlfriend, she doesn't know. She's like, what? It's like she's somewhere in between mad and about to cry.
What about your attorney?
Back behind me.
Does he say anything?
And, the judge said a couple other things, and I said louder, that's not me. Everybody, I think, in the courtroom heard me. So the judge starts waving the papers in my direction. And he says, here, let him see. Give them to him. Let him see what he's done. So I stand up and my chains and shackles and stuff, and I've got my hands out. Tommy said, kind of tapped me on the leg and kind of wanted me to sit down. And I said, man, I've never been to Robeson County. That's not me. So the DA's kind of looking at me, looking at the papers and the judge, and he's looking a little nervous. And he says, this one here says Michael Russell. Excuse me. So he runs up and grabs the pack of papers from the bailiff and kind of goes back to his desk and kind of looks down. And then you hear from the back of the courtroom somebody yells, "What the F?" like really, really loud because it was silent in there.
I literally can see this happening. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, so it's a friend of mine back there too. I had come all the way from Cleveland, Ohio, to sit in this hearing because everybody was literally expecting me to get a bond. So we didn't get that pack of paper. The judge was like, well, with all these arrests, it seems like he's just been riding around doing whatever he wants to. Then Tommy, my lawyer, again says, not one of those is conviction. I again say it wasn't me.
Your attorney didn't say, let me see the pack of paper? Because they have to show.
No, he didn't. Right. That's a big mistake, in my opinion.
Yes.
Because now it's barely in the record. You just have what people are speaking. You don't have what they're doing. So everybody's kind of like, oh, no. So now the DA brings up some photos to the judge and says that I had a sniper rifle in my truck and drugs. I hadn't been charged with any of this stuff at this point. So the judge said that the rifle was very concerning and he didn't like it.
Wait. I just want to pause for a second. Yeah. He's saying, I'm just trying to imagine I'm sitting in there. And he's saying he hasn't been charged with any of this stuff at this point. Did you then say, none of these are my charges?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm looking back on it, and the judge at some point kind of clammed up and wouldn't speak, and he kind of pointed around a little bit and stuff. It kind of seems like that's a tactic. He's not making any commands or anything like that on the record. Maybe I'm just seeing it a certain way, but it really seems suspect now that I know a few things about court reporters and stuff. So the judge pipes up now, and he's like, wait, is this a capital case? And the DA's like, well, yes, Your Honor, it's a capital case, absolutely. So then the judge says, well, I'm sorry, this is a capital case. Now, if he ends up sitting down in jail for a while, I might consider bond, but not at this time, bond or not. In my mind, I'm like, I've been down here forever. I've been down here for 8 full months. I might still have a chance to do some business with customers. I don't know. One of my customers actually called my girlfriend, a big customer, at furniture. Lots of automation, a lot of stuff I was getting ready to get into with him. And he's like, we know Mike. We know that this isn't him. Something's wrong here. When he gets out, tell him to call us. We've got work for him. Right. So that was awesome. But I didn't, I just got denied bond, So it was heartbreaking for everybody.
So really quick, just to do a little recap, I have a question about the phone call between you and your friend about the cell phone. So when you were on the phone with your friend, when you were on the phone with them and then they asked about the cell phone and then you made the comment, just take care of it. What exactly did you mean? Because me hearing you say that, I'm probably thinking the same thing they thought when they heard it. Like, what do you mean take care of it? So what did you mean?
I had thought I was coming home, so the first time was yeah, just pay it for this month, and then we'll see what's up and stuff. And then we had to talk about, yeah, I can keep your account open for $4 a month and just shut the service to the phone off. Right. So yeah, let's do that. You know, there was other discussions about this. You know, I didn't have anything on the phone to hide, so there wasn't really any reason to wipe it. I had tons of pictures, you know, plus I got the cloud account and all that kind of stuff. And I knew it was an iPhone. I said, if they really want in the phone, they'll have to come ask. But if they ask, I got no problem with it. But they never came and asked.
So you meaning take care of it was just simply, you know, pay the bill now, and then we'll figure out what we got to do if we got to disconnect it or whatever. That's what you meant by take care of it.
Yes.
And actually,
it wasn't delete the phone.
Yeah, and actually the phone was wiped long before this conversation was had, so it couldn't have been in regard to wipe the phone of evidence.
So did the attorney bring that part up in court?
Her on the phone until
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
2 or 3 days later. It might have been Christmas Day. I can't remember. The email that we got from Apple, like to my email account, that said Michael's phone is being deleted was like 10 o'clock the night I got arrested, or maybe 11 o'clock the night I got arrested, which is funny because it's right after the police checked me into the jail.
Does anybody know what happened with your phone, why it got deleted?
I hit on this before. When I got that iPhone 7, I set it up like there was two options. If somebody put the passcode in wrong 5 times, you can lock the phone,
that's right.
or you can wipe the phone.
Okay.
And I selected the wipe feature. It seemed like cool, like extra security at the time. You know, I was like, yeah we'll do it that way. That's awesome. That's new. But that's all I can come up with that happened.
Got it. That makes sense.
There was no
It
reason
does
to
make
do it.
sense, because if you've lost your phone and somebody's trying to get in it and they put the code in 5 times, I mean, you would want your information wiped from it because you have bank accounts and all kinds of personal
passcodes and
photos.
pictures.
I use it for work, so probably half of my photos on there are pictures of electrical panels, and I'll dump the pictures off of that, put them on my computer, and I can arrange them to where I'm designing the new panel. Just all kinds of different things like that. So,
did your attorney bring that up in court, like as to the date that it was wiped? Was way before this conversation took place?
They asked me about this stuff on the stand, and you know, I probably should have hauled it out then, but I didn't want to mess with her case, so I kept my mouth shut about email. Now we had it. My lawyer had it, knew everything about it, and we could have run with it. But his kind of mentality about things was, his big thing was just attacking the murder charge. You know, and I told him like the drug charge, you know, stuff like that. I was like, look, I can admit to that, you know, but you're not given a chance to admit to it early. Like, you're going to run through the whole gambit if you go to trial. And when I was on the stand, I said, yeah, I knew they're there. I wasn't using them. You know, they asked me if I was messed up. I was like, no, I wasn't messed up. And I ran into 15 police officers that night, and not one of them thought that I was under the influence of anything. So no, I wasn't under the influence. You know, so
yeah. What charges were on the table for you as far as the murder goes? Well, like, was there first degree, second degree, voluntary manslaughter, things like that? Were those all options?
No, the judge took that off the table. I was going to kind of cover that when we got a little further along, but yeah, we actually argued for first degree and self-defense because we felt we beat first degree 110%. I felt like they were, you know, they capitally charged me, and then when we go into the trial, something else happened. So at the end of it all, it was just first and second degree murder or not guilty. And really should have had manslaughter as an option. And there's reasoning for that with the self-defense thing, because there's some types of self-defense in North Carolina warrant a manslaughter charge. It has to do with whether you use excessive force or you're the aggressor in the situation.
Okay.
So now we had many additional hearings between then and the trial. My lawyers had calls with district attorneys requesting copies of all the surveillance videos. So we know that there was multiple camera angles there, but we had only ended up with one. I'm not sure what my first lawyers did. The first thing that I saw that had the other camera angles on it, but it's like it disappeared. So we kept requesting from the district attorney. The attorney over and over said that there's no video. What are you talking about? Like, it just kept playing it off like the video didn't exist, which is super scary because if I didn't have that video, I had nothing to back up my side of the story. And their version of events is so different from that video. It really, at some point, and I was going to cover this a little later, but at some point, the main witness, Roy Pruitt, they didn't like his statements because they're way, way off from what happened. They called him into the sheriff's department, showed him the surveillance video, and had him make a new statement.
What?
I don't even know how that's legal or good police work or anything, but that's what they did, because we have 4 or 5 different statements from Roy Pruitt from the police department and the sheriff's department.
So then is he even a credible witness because he's given,
multiple statements?
Right. It gets worse when he gets on the stand.
God, that was what I was going to ask, but you tell us when you get there.
So we finally told the DA, like, look, we already have one camera angle of this event, but we know there's multiple camera angles at the restaurant, but you need to give them to us. So, there's motions in court over that. The judge already ordered, anything that's exculpatory, which...
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
You have to give it to them. So, VA just was like putting us off. Tommy, who's this big time, he's older, everybody in the state seems to know who Tommy is, goes to the DA's office to talk to him. The secretary said that he was in. Please, he'd get out as soon as he can. Well, Tommy waited for 2.5 hours in the chair out there waiting for him. And he never would come out to see him. So Tommy, the next day, I think, stopped the jury selection process and indefinitely trial in Raleigh to do an emergency hearing in Asheboro. As soon as we get in there, the DA is like, "Oh, I got you. I'm going to try and get everything for you today," and just playing into the judge. But he was really messing with us pretty bad, not giving us anything that we needed that would help me. Yeah, and actually, the only video we got from them was an enhanced copy of that same camera angle from the FBI that actually shows Gamble's movements, the guy who died's movements, much better, but we only got it 2 weeks before the trial. One other hearing we had, I can't remember the date, but the judge was playing with the idea of joining my trial and my girlfriend's trial together. I got to sit about a foot away from her, and it was, just wanted to hug her. I got this belt on and shackles and handcuffs and stuff, and I can't. She's right there. I can't even give her a hug. It was awful.
At this point, were you guys still in communication, or was it still a strain at this point? Like, were you still talking to her at this point?
Yes, we were still talking at that point. She kind of does this little thing, especially if she sees me riding on my bike and she's in the car or something like that. She'll always flash a 1, a 4, and a 3 at me, which means I love you. So she did that in the court, and I was like, okay, cool, it's going to be all right.
That's sweet.
It was good, even though we didn't get to hug or anything. But the judge, he just kind of looked at the DA and was like, "You're crazy if you think we're putting these trials together." And I think he really realized that her charges were kind of ridiculous. So he was trying to take it easy on her. At least that's the way it seemed. Yeah, so we didn't have a trial together, which is great. And sometime right around here too, Detective Chabot, who was the captain at Randolph County Sheriff's Department, was kind of over the detectives. He went into the Sheriff's Department evidence locker, checked out Larry Campbell's pistol, which is his Smith & Wesson MP40, took it to the firing range, set up a camera, tested the safety, and then shot the pistol. I guess doing a function test. But at this point, we hadn't had a chance yet to check the pistol out and at least see if it had been fired. So we might not be able to tell it was fired in the parking lot, but we could at least say to the jury, hey, the pistol had been fired for, or not. If it was perfectly clean, well, we would know that it hadn't been fired. But he just went and grabbed his pistol and went and shot it. So, I didn't know that was okay. Nobody did anything about it. It is just, right around that time, he was let go from the sheriff's department. The new sheriff came in, he wasn't rehired. And there's a news story, I think it was in the Courier Tribune, maybe some other places, that Chabot deleted and destroyed the sheriff's department server hard drive. And I think it had some drug fund info and some other stuff on it. One question we started to ask is, well, we can't find any of these other videos. Were they maybe stored there? We don't know. But he also supervised the services of my truck. I mean, he lied on an affidavit for the second search warrant, which he said that I flashed my lights at these guys to get them to pull over, which is not true whatsoever. They testified, who had testified, they were going to barbecue Joe's anyway before this happened. Never said anything about me flashing my lights. I know I never did it. I wouldn't do that. You know, but
don't
they just
have
came
the
out of
cameras?
nowhere. Yes, they at least can see me driving down the road behind them.
Right.
And my lights never flashed.
Right.
You know? So it's just a lie. But, you know, current attorney's like, well, it's not that big of a lie. They still would have got the search warrant. I was like, man, a lie's a lie.
It shows that they're not credible.
Detective Chabot, just really something else that he did. When he wasn't rehired in Randolph County, he tried to get a job with the surrounding counties in law enforcement. He falsified his resume, and this info was shared between the counties falsifying it. So he wasn't hired, and last I heard he was working in insurance. Not showing a lot of honesty and you know, honorable action there in the sheriff's department, at least at that time. But I'm not saying they're all like that. And, you know, some things were done really good with my case. He was over the detective on my case. That was his boss. And he actually was there conducting the searches of my truck. I believe he's the one that messed with my cell phone. And I had a couple of conversations to why I believe that, but I'm just going to leave that like that for now.
But the reason I asked that is, and I don't know about this portion of it, was that brought up in court? Like, that to me gives credit to you. Like, he's dishonest. He wasn't even hired back. You know, he's lied about these things. Did your attorney ever bring this up?
It gets worse than this with some other people in the trial. They said that making the police out to be liars will be used against you by the district attorney, especially in a closing argument, and they said it won't get you anything with the jury. And I'm like, how can it not? If I'm on that jury and I see that the police are lying about anything, you're going home.
Right.
If you can't play fair and you're on the good guy team, we're done.
Right.
You know?
I agree.
Well, so it would depend on the defendant, I think, a little bit too, but I don't know. So let me see. Now we're doing pretrial hearings. Yeah. So this is another thing that happened around this time, and maybe a month before trial, a little bit more than that. We had a hearing. After the hearing, I think the next day I met with Tommy and told me this happened. The judge stopped Tommy in the hallway in the courtroom or courthouse and asked him why the case is capital. Like, what's making this a capital case? Why are we about to have a capital trial? And Tommy told him, hey, we're not supposed to talk about this. We can't have this conversation without the DA here. You know we're not supposed to do that. And the judge just kind of goes, well, whatever. Why is this a capital case? So Tommy goes, okay, so you want to do this, all right? It isn't a capital case. It never should have been. He said the worst it should ever been was a second-degree murder charge, but it's probably really a manslaughter charge. And why he didn't do that, he didn't know. And then Tommy didn't tell me any more about that conversation, but that's considered an ex parte meeting, and it's not something a judge is allowed to do. You know, and then 2 weeks later, there's another hearing about something else at the courthouse, and the district attorney all of a sudden announces that the case is being decertified to non-capital first-degree murder, which is a good thing. It is. Yeah. But, you know, my family has already gone through so much to pay for a capital trial. 2 lawyers, it's double a murder charge. I mean, it's $200,000 plus. It's just crazy, you know. And then there's the public's view of it because that gets thrown out in the papers and stuff. And so you can't really repair any of that damage. But the DA is just kind of like, you know, okay, yeah, I'm just taking it off, which kind of points to the judge must have said something to the DA. So there's another ex parte meeting, which you're not allowed to do.
Sounds like there was a lot of foul play here, a lot of things that weren't supposed to happen that happened.
Right. I don't always have a direct line to it, but I mean, Tommy does. Tommy was there. But let me see. And this is the other thing that really just bothers me about this the whole time. I haven't really got to publicly say this. Campbell's family was really upset when the DA dropped the death penalty. I could just see them. They're like, oh, what? Like, they're, you know, part of me is like, yeah. It says it's not a death penalty case, but part of me realizes, like,
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
They think that I've taken their loved one. They think that I've done it on purpose, and they think that I'm just evil, and I went there, and I did this. And that was my whole intent, and I'm awful.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. It's not the case, but it brings a lot of hate into a death and a tragedy. And I've always just felt like you're changing the narrative of what actually happened as being, not only do they have the tragedy and the loss to deal with, they have this hate to deal with too, because you're turning it into something that it's not.
Yeah.
And here they are. This attorney won't even turn around and look at him now because they're trying to get his attention. When I left the courtroom, he wouldn't even speak to him. And my dad was like, dude, he's like, I'm totally glad that the capital was dropped. That's really messed up. He won't even talk to him. And I felt the same way. I just felt like they got jerked around a lot, and there's a lot of dishonesty going on. For what reason?
Right.
Did you want to make this crime fit what you want, charge and try the crime that actually may have happened? I don't know. It's just not right. I don't know.
That says a lot, though, because it's about you, and you actually sympathize with them about your punishment. So that says a lot. Okay, keep going.
Right. Yeah. So during this hearing, it gets brought up about security and things like that. Says he doesn't want to. The district attorney, Mr. Dozier, said he doesn't want a trial that's special. He just wants to be like any other trial, except when we start the trial and we start the jury selection stuff, half the parking lot gets blocked off at the courthouse. They put snipers on the corners of the roof at the courthouse, and they've got officers walking around in the courthouse with AR-15. I mean, not a bunch of them, but a couple of them. But I mean, that's never happened in the history of that county courthouse, to my knowledge. I asked and asked, and I never tried to speak. I mean, I had people at the jail that were willing to testify on my behalf of how good my conduct was, and they didn't understand the charge.
And they hadn't had this prior to this point? They hadn't had this police presence prior?
No.
What happened?
No.
That's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. And if you look at the club and our history of when people have gotten in trouble or had trials, nobody tried to break anybody free. Yes, there was sometimes as a presence to support, and people came to support me, but it was my family was there for the whole trial. They flew down from Vermont, that's it. It's support. Nobody's going to go out and do anything illegal. Nobody's going to get locked up. It's a trial. I mean, we respect the law. People think that this club doesn't respect the law. It does. I don't know. Sad. It's fear mongering, and I think the jury may have seen a lot of that and was probably freaked out. So now we start to select our jury. During the selection process, the Sheriff Siebel, interacted with numerous jurers while transporting them to the courthouse. He's not supposed to do that. We stopped and had a hearing about it. The judge was like, hey, no more driving the jurors around, stop talking to them, that kind of stuff. Then after the trial started, there was reports that the sheriff sat down with the jurors at lunch one day after we're mid-trial. I don't know. That didn't make it back into the courtroom.
Of course.
So I don't know why. Right. But multiple people saw it. Tina, my girlfriend's mom, worked with someone that, I don't know, somehow knew a juror. And they also said it. So it's kind of confirmed by a few different places. Though this was a little weird too. I recognized one of the selected jurors, and he had some kind of relationship with the DA, but he's just really familiar to me. Like maybe I saw him at work somewhere or something.
Were you present?
He wore khakis in Oxford.
Were you present for jury selection with your attorney?
Yes.
And these people, whenever they got on the stand and they were asked if they recognized you or things like that, did they say that they hadn't?
There was one guy that came through that I used to work with at a local, very large molding company in Randleman. He was I think manufacturing engineer or plant engineer or something like that. And he got up and he said, yes, I know Mr. Russ. Him and I have collaborated on numerous engineering projects together. They just asked him. He said, well, so you really wouldn't be comfortable making a decision on this man's life, would you? He said, no. Mike's a good guy, and I don't know. So that was actually nice to have somebody say something like that. I kind of want to jump up and hug him because he is a good guy, and I really appreciated that. But other than that, you had some people get up that were like, and I can't believe they let him say this. They're like, well, he pointed to me. He's like,
you have 60 seconds remaining.
I have 17 felonies. And I'm like, I don't have any felonies. What's he talking about?
Did you say that?
No, I'm not allowed to speak
Oh,
during
okay.
any of that. That's one hard thing about this. Is you have to sit there and just be quiet for most of it.
Well, did your attorney
Your
straighten it
attorney.
out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of following his lead.
Welcome back.
Hi.
So my question was, you were talking about the jury, and one of the jurors gets up on the stand, and during jury selection, and he states, what did he say again? That something about you had 17 felonies?
Yes. Yeah, I've heard about him. He's got like 17 felonies.
Which is a false accusation against you.
Absolutely. And it's in front of some other jurors.
And that's what I was going to say, is during jury selection, all the jurors are sitting there. So this is all information that now all the jurors have heard. So is your attorney in any way able to right this wrong that this guy spoke about your background?
No. You know, the district attorney is asking questions because they're doing a voir dire, which is, you know, asking questions, trying to select the jurors. You know, the DA just kind of laughed. You know, no, that's not him. That's not him. But he was kind of.
But he puts it out there, and he already puts that thought into the other jurors' mind.
Right. And they did excuse one juror. They left. I mean, we still had, 50 people to go through or something like that. But he said something in the parking lot to other people, like, man, this is really juicy tea. It's involving some crazy stuff. And they came back and said something the next day. They got rid of him, and they got rid of the two that he said it to. So, I mean, they were kind of trying to select down. But I don't know. Like one of the guys that I had recognized.
This call is from
couldn't figure out from where. You know, he was talking about that he went to school with the district attorney's wife, and saw them at church pretty regularly, and you know, he was asked if he had any ties or issues with law enforcement or me or the jail. And he said no. A little later on, I think we started actually presenting evidence. So this guy ended up seated on the jury, and he had done some work for the DA's wife or something at the house and handyman.
Did your attorney at any point during jury selection, after hearing this about the DA and the conflict of interest between that juror and knowing the DA, did your attorney at any time, motion for him to be not on the jury?
No, and we there was some. So you get a couple of basically vetoes. You know, you can select certain people and just kick them out for no reason. We're gonna get rid of him, you know. And I think there's some other people. Tommy didn't want on there. I think one was an officer that worked right around the sheriff's department stuff. I mean, he could have been fair, but like that's not they side with their buddies all the time, you know. I don't put that to chance.
Yeah.
But we ended up with this guy, and what really sucks is at the start of evidence, it popped in my head where I recognized him. And the reason it didn't come instantly is because I'd seen him before at the jail. When I'm in my orange jumpsuit at the visitation window, meeting with my family and people, he was like a one window over reading somebody else. And I couldn't remember who he was coming to visit, but it just popped. I was like, oh my God. When he comes to the jail, he wears more like NASCAR T-shirts, half a hat, and stuff like that. When he's coming to the courthouse, he's wearing khaki pants, Oxford shirt, and he's, no hat. And I brought it up to my lawyer right then, and I'm like, dude, this guy's been visiting somebody in the jail. And he's like, well, yeah, but I think we're okay. So he didn't want to make a fuss about it, I guess. I don't know, but that made me wonder, like, who are you visiting? Is it your son? Is it your cousin? And you were supposed to say something about that. But that kind of puts the DA in control or having some kind of influence possibly over this juror. And they already see each other outside of the court. So why isn't that an issue? I don't know. I brought it up to my lawyer I have now, and he's like, yeah, that's not an issue. I said, okay, never mind. It's really crazy. So now we're at the trial. DA's opening statement said he told the jurors that I was out hunting guys from this other motorcycle club, and he uses the name of my club as much as possible. And sometimes it's almost laughable. Like one time he said, "Yeah, blah blah blah," and I'm like, that's all he said. He didn't put it with anything. He didn't threw it out there. Are you okay? It was kind of ridiculous. So then he starts talking about a private investigator that my lawyer hired. And I never met this guy. At this point, I still hadn't met him, but he calls him a club investigator, like if he's part of the club and he's an investigator for the club or something like that. And the man is actually a 35-year Winston-Salem police officer who retired and has been doing private detective work since he's retired. You know, it's like innuendos he keeps putting on stuff. I don't know how he doesn't get in trouble for that, but it didn't happen. Yeah, so I don't know. That's the only thing I really had from his opening statement. It was just a lot of stuff. Club. Yeah, of course, I wasn't hunting anybody. It just happened to be we're going the same direction. Let me stop and meet these guys. So now we start. DA starts his case. Numerous people from the scene tried to, and from the restaurant tried to help Larry Campbell testify. I feel awful for them. I just giving them a hug would help them feel better. Anything. I don't know, but I really feel for them. I'm amazed that they performed CPR, did anything they could to try to keep him alive, and I'm really, really sorry that that's the trauma they had to go through. It sucks how many people this has affected, you know, and I'm sure they're never going to forget any of that. They're okay.
As you're hearing this, are you showing emotion or are you just kind of listening?
I mean, I'm definitely feeling it. I don't know how much I'm showing it. I wasn't crying, you know. I really did feel awful.
I bet. I just didn't know what your facial looked
like. Somebody's talking about...
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
Yeah, the man throws up on them or you know, whatever, and then also them having to watch him finally pass away. You know, I've been in some situations, performed CPR before, you know, I'm not TA certificated, you know, first responders, all kinds of different certifications. I've done some of this stuff, so I know it can affect you. And I don't know, I do feel for them, and that was tough to hear. Just sorry they had to go through that. So yeah, I'm not sure how much I was showing. I wasn't just openly crying. I did my best to try to hold that together. But one of the hardest things was to listen to Larry Campbell's mom get up on the stand. And I think she probably would have smacked me, but I really probably just wanted to reach out to her and just talk to her. You know, I just had expected maybe to get a letter from them someday, and if there's ever anything they need from me, their closure or anything. I've been wide open about it. My mom and my family's like, yeah, just leave that alone. But I could tell it was awful for her, and I couldn't imagine losing a child.
Right, so but I get where you're coming from with that, because if something happened and I didn't mean for it to happen, that was never my intention, and now I'm sitting through this awful situation that took place, and now it's deciding my fate. But his mother is up there, and you know, the victim's mother, and she's weeping, and you can see her pain, but you also are feeling the pain because you didn't mean for this to happen. I get why you feel the way you feel. I would have felt that exact same way.
Right.
Yeah, I think that we all
right.
I just want to talk to them.
Think about it every day. I think about it every day. I pray for them every night. I have since I was in jail.
Right.
I mean, it's just my end of my day. I pray for my kid's mom, my girlfriend, her son, you know, and Larry Campbell's family and his children every day. I don't know. That seems like one of the better ways to end the day. So that's what I do. Yeah. So at the beginning, the DA requests joinder of my other charges of the possession of weapon of mass destruction, the drug, traffic offenses. He said that he would prove that they were all related. I don't even think he ever really even tried to do that. Well, how are you going to relate stuff that's, you know, inaccessible in the back of my truck to what happened in the parking lot? I don't know, but he said he was going to. There wasn't any really connection other than they were in the truck. But the judge said the trial would still be fair and granted the motion. I mean, you know, when you bring something in like a drug or a weapon that's provocative, anything like that, you know, it just kind of makes you look bad. Like, you know, and of course they had any of my club stuff that I had in the truck. I had a sweatshirt, my vest that just was sitting on the seat under a backpack with some extra clothes in it for me traveling. You know, they laid all that stuff out for the jury. Like, it just sat in front of them every single day. Yeah, so we ask for a motion in limine, which is to limit the amount of talk about motorcycle clubs and the names of the motorcycle clubs, and to not call them motorcycle gangs, not a gang. The judge granted it, like, impartial. Like he said, he didn't mind saying that we were motorcycle clubs, but he didn't want to go any further, which is kind of crazy. He gets brought up on the field and other stuff. And then, the DA has been going on, again, to the jury, stated over and over that flashed my headlights at the two bikers, to get them to pull over. Again, I never did that. Nobody ever said that I did it, and it's not on a video. Yep. The DA talked about other motorcycle clubs in the state and tries to bring them into the trial. I don't know why he did that. And this is outside our two motorcycle clubs, trying to drum up other stuff that doesn't have anything to do with this. So now we start to call witnesses. So the first witness he called was Johnson, who was sitting in the back of the parking lot.
That's the one that was on lunch, and he was about to go in for a shift, and he was sitting there. Okay.
Yep. So you got the row of parking spaces to the right side of the restaurant, and then the drive-through lane kind of in between, and then another lane you can drive through in between. As you make the bend around the corner in the back of the restaurant, in the back there's those parking spots back there. So they're kind of good in away from them. Yeah, he was in his car, kind of hanging out. His 911 call was played for the jury. He tells the operator he didn't see anything except for a black truck and a Toyota emblem. He ducked down in his seat, and he provides a basic description to the officer. I think it said somebody was 250 to 260 pounds, 6'1", with shoulder-length blonde hair, wearing khaki pants and a flannel shirt. At the time, was probably about 215. People get that wrong. I was 6 foot, but my hair was up in a bun.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
And I've got brown hair, but that just goes to show, eyewitness stuff gets way screwed up.